Ni hao, I'm Rob, and this is Higher Level Gaming. Today we're going to be doing another episode of Newswatch, but it's going to be a little bit different because we're tackling a story that actually was in the news a couple months back. I know I'm a bit late, but I figure since the news has been pretty slow lately, we have time to dive in on this topic. The topic, of course, that I'm going to be discussing is China. I'm actually a couple months late on this topic itself because this video is going to be about China and, of course, Blizzard and the whole Diablo Immortal fiasco that happened back in November last month, and specifically a response to Jason Schreier's article that he wrote up about the whole topic. Now, Jason's article was one of the most informed articles on the entire internet about the topic, and he had a lot of insider information. So I definitely suggest that you go ahead and check that one out. I'll have a link in the description down below. Kingdom Hearts. We've talked a lot about Kingdom Hearts lately and even started uploading our Let's Play for the series. As far as the next title in the series goes, though, the game is officially done and there's even leaks and shit now. It's pretty much already released. What we haven't talked about, however, is China's view of the game and the Chinese market's experience of the game. Kingdom Hearts 3 has been a little bit censored in China, you see, or rather, Winnie the Pooh has been censored. Just Winnie the Pooh. All traces of him were eliminated from the game in China. And if you don't know why that is, well, it's because of the leader of the country, Xi Jinping. If you don't know, Xi Jinping has been memed with Winnie the Pooh because some people think he has a kind of passing resemblance to the character. I believe it's more just like a mockery of him being a bit overweight and a Chinese man, which is kind of uncommon, and the fact that he's a greedy politician. So all of those things together, Winnie the Pooh, I guess it kind of works. But if you're the Chinese government, not really, because any instance of Winnie the Pooh is essentially banned in China. You can't even post it on the internet, and you can't even have Winnie the Pooh in your video game, as we're seeing with Kingdom Hearts 3. It's kind of weirdly implemented too. Like, if you look, they left Piglet and Rabbit and shit, but just whited out Winnie the Pooh. Honestly, it looks ridiculous. Why am I bringing this up? Why does any of this matter? How is any of this related to Blizzard and Diablo Immortal? Well, because of the memes, Winnie the Pooh is illegal and dangerous. It's kind of dumb, but that's what you get when you don't have a free press or a free country, and that's what's wrong with the media in China and the country as a whole. This is important to our later discussion, so keep that in mind. China has also banned a lot of games in the past year, and there was even a freeze that started back in March that has recently been lifted. Unfortunately, it's unclear how far that lift will go actually, and there's also been news that some games will have to be prohibited or either have their content adjusted for the Chinese market in another statement by the Ministry of Propaganda. So overall, there's a lot of confusion as to what will fly in the Chinese market, and there's not really any clear rules. Of the games that are to be reviewed, World of Warcraft, Fortnite, League of Legends, and Diablo are just a start. All these games, according to sources, will be prohibited or recommended for revision. And yes, this is why the episode is called China Edition. Now, to dive into the actual heart of this issue, we're going to be breaking down the article that Jason Schreier did about Diablo Immortal and Blizzard in general. In that article that Schreier wrote, apparently a Blizzard dev said that Diablo Immortal pretty much only exists because, and I quote, China really wants it. So consider how the censorship that China insists upon is going to affect a game that is designed purely for their market, and how that's going to affect us as consumers in the West. This is going to be a game that is at its core designed for a Chinese audience, and it will be toned down and shoehorned into the standards of that communist country. So yes, China is ruining Blizzard, and you heard it from Jason Schreier first. Actually, no, I'm just kidding. He wouldn't actually say that. He hates opinions of any kind. He wrote a whole article about this debacle though, and this is our take. Gamers are angry at Blizzard. Why? For not providing them with the content they want or desire. That's called being a consumer. Not entitlement, by the way. Blizzard Activision at the same time has had a really rough year and is clamoring to save money by releasing mobile cash grabs that audiences are frankly mad at and booing. Basically, gamers hate that developers keep making things we don't really want, like Destiny 2 DLC, Battle Royale clones, oh, and of course mobile games. Especially mobile games. A lot of things games do now are cash grabs, but mobile games, they are almost exclusively cash grabs and never legitimate games. Apparently, China likes them, And yeah, well, no shit. Mobile is huge in China if you don't know, and I'm pretty sure that most people have access to a phone to play a mobile game as opposed to a PC or a console. And it's probably a lot easier for them to get these games approved because I'm sure a lot of console games are not going to be approved, like Kingdom Hearts 3, which has Winnie the Pooh in it. Mobile happens to be an opportunity for the company to make a lot of money, which is the point. This is all about money, folks, as always when it comes to big companies like Activision. One developer claimed that actually this is what the people at Blizzard want, you know? These are just the games that they want to develop there at the company. But a statement by a fellow employee kind of spits in the whole face of that when they say, essentially, it exists because we've heard that China really wants it. It really is just for China. So I mean, it doesn't get any plainer than that. People aren't really acting entitled, we're just acting smart enough to see through a company's deception yet again. They're telling us this is what they want to do, when in fact they're actually being pressured both by a marketplace that is ripe for devouring, which a company like Activision is going to salivate at, and also because they want to make up for some losses in the company. They feel like Blizzard is not as profitable as it should be, and they want to find a way to do that. Mobile games, again, are a great way for a company that wants money to expand their empire. Maybe the gamers in China are really happy with mobile. They can't even look at Winnie the Pooh, though, for Christ's sakes, and that doesn't mean I should have to play their communism-style phone games, or even pretend that Blizzard is still trying to develop games for me. The quality bar in the Chinese market, especially for frame rate, is extremely low, said another anonymous dev. You can release something that would be considered alpha footage here, and it would be a finished game there. That's the motivation for decision makers at Activision Blizzard. Despite any corporate subtlety, shifts in power, or failed projects leading to this point, as Schreier feels compelled to espouse in an attempt to garner sympathy for the company made the decision to start developing games that consumers feel negatively about. Again, that's at least in countries with free press. And I'm sorry if the developers are being forced into this as the culture of the company shifts, but I'm a consumer. That's not my fish to fry. Jason Schreier, who wrote this article, has widely criticized gamers' response to these developments as uninformed and toxic. I would argue his readers are also the gamers he criticizes, and it should be easy for him to call out how distasteful these practices are. His job as a journalist is to ask organizations hard questions on behalf of us gamers, to make them accountable. That's what the press is supposed to do anyway, and many amazing accomplishments have been made by journalists who do just that. Sexual abuse in the Catholic Church never would have been discovered if journalists were reporting how tough things were at the time for the church, instead of fighting for the rights of the people attending, not the institution surviving off of them. Sometimes companies and other organizations don't have a symbiotic relationship with their customers or their members. Sometimes it can be quite parasitic. Mobile games are simply a symptom of that and the problems at Activision Blizzard, like the games as a service model that they are failing to successfully implement. These are also coincidentally practices booming in China. So maybe Activision didn't kill Blizzard, but China just might have. Employees that Schreier talked to also said one of the biggest discussions at the company at the moment is cutting cost, reducing the cost of operations. Making inferior games that suck money from their players is quite an effective way of doing that. Schreier also seems to think that knowing Diablo 4 is coming should appease fans, to regard Immortal as a bonus, an offshoot from a development team not involved with the main series. The only problem, we don't want it, and we don't want it as innocuous as you make it seem. We still don't want it. That separate development team doesn't much change the fact that we aren't getting any more games. We're getting mobile games, which in our opinion, like I've said, aren't even real games. In the process of working up to this, Schreier expertly details all of Blizzard's failures this past decade. And it's a long list. Again though, as someone who's buying these things from these people and expects to get something in return that I desire, why should I, as a consumer, really care about their problems? The company has fucked up. I don't have to be cool and eat their shitty mobile games up because the only thing they've given fans of Diablo for years is going to be this mobile game. Maybe people should be mad about that. To bring Immortal to life, Blizzard has now partnered with the people who ported Diablo 3 to China. They have partnered with the people who made Diablo 3 a free-to-play mode in China, NetEase. For some reason, I can't think this improved the experience of Diablo 3 at all. It was, of course, profitable for the company, however, hence the newly announced Immortal game. And on a quick side note, the reason a company does that, makes a game free to play when it originally wasn't, isn't to make it cheaper to play, not at all. It's actually to make more money off the product, and he gives conflicting takes on if the developers actually want to make mobile games, or if pressure from China and to reduce cost is the influencing factor for those decisions. Lastly, Jason says these projects may not appeal to fans, but appeal to developers. Well, if developers want to experiment with mobile games to make a mobile Warcraft game, why aren't we allowed to say, wow, that's kinda lame. Those games are usually money pits, the interface sucks, it's a subpar gaming experience and has no depth. We also kinda thought you were gonna make more of the good games you guys were making that we loved. Why exactly is that an invalid opinion? Why can't you say that? And should I really truly believe that this large push for mobile coinciding with deep financial trouble and a fiscally disappointing year for Activision Blizzard are unrelated? It was all just developers who wanted to make mobile, right? They're the ones who pushed for it? Again, mobile games are cash grabs, and it would help a company that looks like it's going under, as some former employees describe it. Overall, Jason's entire time throughout the article, though he helps to expose these problems, his attitude is one of pity for the developers and the company. He feels bad for them, that they can't please their corporate bosses or their customers. And as someone who works for a big corporation, I'm sure Schreier empathizes with that struggle. He can probably also empathize with the criticism that they're getting. When people feel that Jason has failed in his job as a games journalist to present their side of the story, they make it well known to him. The criticisms he receives from gamers, however, shouldn't color how he characterizes them. They are his customers, his readers, his people. In a discussion with Young Ye, Schreier claimed that his audience and Young's are different groups, but I disagree strongly. We are all gamers, and he should try to speak for the lot of us. He did a great job gathering real information about the company and its changes, and I highly suggest you read his article again. But I can't help but feel, however, that his take ultimately let me down. He felt accomplished in blueprinting the path that led Blizzard to this unpalatable place, and was content to stop there, making no judgment on the company, and in my opinion, there fails to use his power of his voice in the discussion to challenge change for the betterment of the gamers and the games industry as a whole. That's all we had today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, why don't you give us a like, subscribe, maybe even hit the bell for notifications every time we post. Also, don't forget to go play some video games, and have a nice day.
This eye is not merely seeing reality, it is touching the truth.